Silent Hill 2 Remake finally got a release date after its announcement a year and a half ago. October 8th is the day, right in time for Halloween. We got an extended look at the gameplay and it's looking great. In fact, it's got me wanting to play it right now. But October is still some months away, so what am I going to do? Then it hit me. I'm going to turn Resident Evil 4 into Silent Hill 2. But how will I do this, you ask? Well, if there's a will, there's a way. You see, our friend James here took a wrong turn on the way to his special place, and now he ended up in Spain, where he's trapped. But he was nice enough to bring Maria and the fog along with him. To make James feel a bit more at home, I've given myself some rules to further align ourselves with Silent Hill 2. So this means there will be no heads-up display, helping to make our questionable aim even more questionable. And this would also mean we'd have to really use our eyeballs to find the items scattered throughout the game and spot openings to roundhouse kick anados. This would also mean that we wouldn't be able to upgrade our weapons or change them at all. We'll be stuck using the level 1s for the basic pistol, the SG-09R, the basic shotgun, the W870, which you can get from the village at the start of the game, and the basic rifle, the SR M1903, which can be bought at the start of Chapter 2. In another unfortunate turn of events, we've also had our access to grenades and flashbangs revoked, as well as being able to parry any enemies. Well, except for one, who likes to get off on a good knife fight, let's say. Sloppy! We will be playing on standard difficulty because professional with no weapon upgrades is a certified death wish. So, gamers all over the globe, join me as I answer a question absolutely nobody asked. Can you beat Resident Evil 4 if it's Silent Hill 2? All the footage in this video is taken from a very long stream I did over on Twitch, so if you want to see more shenanigans like this, as well as other horror games in general, Twitch link is in the description. Let's go. Kicking off Chapter 1, James is making his way through the fog, where he finds a cabin in the woods, so he has a cheeky look inside. Things don't seem to be right here, and there's some sketchy looking fellas, but we don't have time for a chat, so we hop out the window and we're on our way. James then comes across a village with loads of more of these sketchy folk blocking the way forward, so we're going to have to do something about this. We go into the small house on the left to grab the shotgun off the wall for our second gun. We then go back outside and start popping heads. The idea here is to kill enough of them for the bell to start ringing, and then they all leave.
Alright, let's see what this is about. Where the fuck is everyone?
The bell rings for bingo night, before boom, title card. Now everybody has left, we can make our way through to the next area, where we have to grab a wooden cog which allows us to open the gate to continue pressing forward. We zip on through and come out the other side of a tunnel into the next area. We play it really cool, calm and collected is to make sure not to walk into the tripwire or the bear trap here. We then go into a small shack in front of us and find someone tied up in the basement. No, not in the fun way. Some big lad then shows up and infects James, which brings an end to Chapter 1. Now some of you might see Dr. Kaufman here and think, he's not in Silent Hill 2, what is he doing here? Well, that's just one of the few surprises I've added to really drive home that Silent Hill experience, you know? Anyways, he's having a tug of war with James until they finally break out of the chains. We then head up the merchant to buy the rifle and the scope, making it our third and final weapon, meaning we are now set for the rest of the game with these weapons and no upgrades, remember? Our next goal is to make our way through this area covered in enemies to grab an emblem which we need for a door. So we run through, grab the emblem, but the original door is shut behind us, so we have to make our way up to a wheel to turn the wheel to open the door. Before I can leave, this lovely lady comes up and gives me a cheeky smooch on the cheek. Once we use the emblem to open the door for the next area, we go through and we discover a house just out by itself in the wild. We take a little look inside and we end up finding a key item we need to progress. And as soon as we touch it, the big lad comes out of nowhere to start throwing James around the room. As you can see in this intense cutscene here, the fog in Silent Hill España is very strong. So strong in fact, it's even making its way indoors. But nonetheless, this brings the end to Chapter 2. Chapter 3 we kick off by freeing the best boy, Huey, from Haunting Ground. He's got his little leg caught in a trap, so we help him out. Later we then come across a church, but the front gates are locked, and it needs some kind of weird, unique key. So we set off to find it. We end up finding a boat that could be very helpful, but it needs some fuel, and there's got to be some around here somewhere. And what do you know? We end up finding some and head back to the boat to fill it up. So we set off to explore and we barely make it 5 feet before the thing stops working. Classic. So we're stuck here trying to fix this boat. You know, we're pretty handy, we know some things. When all of a sudden this massive ugly fish jumps out of the water and the boat gets caught on it and it pulls us around with it. So we're gonna have to put an end to this. So usually this boss fight you can see where you're gonna aim the harpoons to actually hit the fish. So having to do this without the aim was actually kind of difficult and it took me a little bit to get used to. But we locked in and we did it. It took a little bit but we finally got him. We put an end to him and the chapter. So now we're on to chapter 4, and remember that weird church key we needed? It turns out we need 2 statue heads to insert into a puzzle, which will then unlock and give us the key. So that's our next objective, to find the 2 statue heads. So we hop in the boat and we make our way over to the first statue, where we gotta take down a bunch of enemies, but you know, this is easy to us, this is child's play. So we grab the first statue head and we see a shortcut which we use to get back to the boat really quickly, and then we're off onto the next one. We make a quick pit stop here to grab a golden egg for a boss fight later in the game. It's kind of cheese, but I hate the boss fight and it's one of the worst designed I've ever seen, so I figured it was okay. If Silent Hill 2 had chickens, I guarantee they would have been dropping eggs for James to grab. Next we go and grab the second head, which thankfully is a lot easier because there's no enemies in this area, so it's just get in and get out. So now we have both statue heads, we can use them to get the church key. But before we can make our way back to the church, there's this big giant monster comes out of nowhere and it wants to squish James. But you gotta remember, this is a guy who killed his own wife. He don't give a fuck. We shoot him a bunch until his weak spot appears, which is a weird parasite thing up on his back. So we run up, give it some tickles. And then Huey decides to return the favour and help us out by distracting El Gigante, letting us do our work, and we get to take him down. Now we have a clear path to the church, where we head inside and meet up with Maria, bringing into chapter 4. So far I was having a great time, I was chilling. But I knew this chapter was coming, and this is where things would start to go downhill. Chapter 5, ladies and gentlemen, the cabin. The only light at the end of the tunnel that was keeping me going through all of this was that it wasn't unprofessional, because I have done that before, and it made me want to stop playing RE4 and start playing with traffic instead. Anyways, we were locked in, this wasn't going to be that bad this time, right? Well, we died once, twice, 3 times before that beautiful angel burst through the door to get us out of there. Maria then starts coughing up blood and we learn that she's also infected with the same thing as James, marking the end of chapter 5. We kick off chapter 6 with an appearance from Sybil Wong, another little surprise I snuck in there, and she still has me so down bad, but we must stay focused, my brothers. Going back over to James and Maria, it seems they found themselves in the Spanish Chainsaw Massacre, having to fight off against the 2 Chainsaw Sisters over here. We gotta take them down because one of them will drop the crank for the next door we need to progress, so that's our next task, to take out these Chainsaw Sisters. And we do so without breaking a sweat. We grab the crank and open the next door to make our way through. As we do, we come across an abandoned barn. Looks kinda sketchy here, maybe like a boss fight's gonna happen, and sure enough I walk inside and it's time to fight Mendez one-on-one. This fight took a bit to get used to because I couldn't figure out where exactly to aim for the barrels when he was across the room, and then also went to perfect exactly dodge his attacks. But we focused up and we had it locked down in no time, and what the kids nowadays would probably say, I ate that up. The barn starts to set on fire and fall apart, so James and Maria get out of there and make their way to the castle as chapter 6 comes to an end. Now chapter 7 is another chapter I was not looking forward to because of one room. The water hall. Oh boy. But we'll get to that later. For now we gotta make our way up the castle, taking out cultists as we go, before jumping onto the cannon and clearing out the rest of the area, and then blowing open the large door so we can get through. We get inside and meet Salazar himself briefly before he sends out some cultists to fight us, and of course we dispatch of them very easily. James and Maria then get separated, and this will be a recurring theme all throughout this game. So now James is by himself, where he's come across a new type of enemy, the Garrador. A big hulking blind enemy with long sharp claws and a weak spot on its back, so you must remain vigilant around these bad boys. We make light work out of the Garrador and meet up with Maria again, and now it's time for Waterhall. I figured the best way to tackle this room would be to make a sprint for the bottom floor to grab the wheel, and then go from there. That's exactly what I did, but I got to the bottom floor and they were just farming me. I knew it was possible for me to grab the wheel and then just get straight out of there. I just needed that one good run, and I got it. I got back upstairs, took out a couple snipers, and luckily there was nobody really around the wheel, so I was able to shove it in and turn it around quickly, and that part was done. So we clear out the rest of the enemies, and now it's time for Maria's big moment up in the bridge, where she's got to run around turning a bunch of wheels as we protect her from the floor below. Can't we just appreciate the boys' aim here with absolutely no crosshairs? I was kinda popping off. Maria seemed to enjoy her time so much in this room that she didn't want to leave, which is giving me conniptions, but she finally did in the end. And once we leave, her infection makes her turn on James as she tries to stab him, but his reflexes are just too damn good. And the chapter closes with them being separated once again. Chapter 8 starts off with Sybil making another appearance to flirt with James a little bit before she vanishes again. We come across another new type of enemy in the form of spiderlings that latch onto the cultists' backs, making them way more aggressive. We have to make our way through a mini tower that is littered with cultists, and we have to turn some levers while we do it. They are relentless here and will stay on your tip the entire time, but we manage to come out strong and make our way to the top. Upon reaching the top, we see another El Gigante is across the way who's throwing rocks over at us, but we gotta be fast here. We keep pushing through until we reach the cannon so we can shoot him in the next week, and then we use that same cannon to blast the doors open in front of us, allowing us to pass through. We come across a door and enter it, and Maria is sitting there all cute in the middle of the fog, and James is reunited with her once again, and the chapter ends. We start chapter 9 in an area where we have to go around and find and lower 3 banners while having to deal with cursed dogs and cultists. Now just take a look at these dogs for a second. Tell me they don't look like the critters from the movie Critters. We manage to lower the banners and proceed to the next area where we make it into a fancy looking mansion. Our next objective is to find 3 more things now. We're going around looking for animal head statues, which we need for a puzzle. The first 2 were a breeze. We did use a grenade for the goat head to do a skip because the area is long and tedious, and I wanted to save ammo for important things. The lion head is the hardest one to get because it's in a room with armoured knights, but we sorted them out pretty quickly and grabbed it. We put the 3 heads into the puzzle, and then James gets locked in horny jail. Did he ever really leave? This means that we get to play as Maria now in her own little segment, where we have to run around in the dark avoiding armoured knights so that we can get back to James to free him. And once we do, Maria gets kidnapped by a spooky looking thing, and they are separated again. Chapter 10 and here on out are brutal, but we keep going. This chapter introduces everybody's favourite enemy, the Novistadors. This big room is full of them, and we need to hit 2 levers to unlock the door to get out of here. So the idea for this room was to not get hit. I know it sounds stupid, but I wanted to run through completely untouched, but that wouldn't work out too well. At least we had our shotgun though, which we used for some blowback to keep the enemies away from us. We got the 2 levers and made our way out of there. The next room is the spiciest in the entire game. You have not 1, but 2 Garradors, and a bunch of cultists all in the same room together. You have to kill the Garradors because this room has 2 pieces that it needs to unlock the door, and each Garrador drops a piece. So we took our time, played it safe, and waited for our moment to strike. I also might have found some new tech, I'm not sure, potentially maybe. I was using this table to kite around the Garradors, and they can hit you across it if you stand close enough, but if you stand a little bit back, they can't actually reach you. So I used this to kite them around, waiting for them to expose their back, and then shoot the parasite in their backs. It was kinda decent. I was aiming at this Garrador's back, but I missed the shot, but the bullet hit the bell and distracted him instead, which then allowed me to finish him off. So mission failed successfully. We make our way out of that room and head forward, and we stumble across Salazar putting Maria through some weird ritual, and of course he's got a trapdoor in the floor to put James down. Classic Salazar. James survives by grabbing onto a hanging chain. He makes everything look so damn cool, this guy. So we let go of the chain and drop down, and we're now at the bottom of the castle, so we gotta find our way out of here. We discover some underground facility with an elevator, and we can use this to get out of here. Good stuff. But this feels all a little too easy. This turns out to be the slowest elevator known to man, and as we're waiting for it, it turns out Salazar has sent his right hand to dispose of us.
Your right hand comes off?
We loop him around and hit him with some traps to make a fool of him, practically being untouchable, and the next thing you know the elevator arrives. We take it up where we end up seeing Kaufman again, and the chapter ends. It's chapter 11 and time to navigate through the mines, a segment I always forget about. I always forget how long Resident Evil 4 actually is. I'm always waiting for the island to pop up, but it's always so far away. Anyways, our first objective in the mines is to find some dynamite so we can blow the rubble out of the way and make our way forward. To do this, we have to get past a lot of enemies on our way, but this is no problem for us. because we're goated and we have the help of Kaufman. We find the dynamite and make our way back to the rubble and continue forward. James and Kaufman are having a lovely romantic moment before all of a sudden it gets interrupted by the El Gigante twins looking for a fight. We gotta put these two bozos in their place. It's a pretty straightforward fight. I take one, Kaufman takes the other, and all of a sudden they're both dead and we're making our way forward. Now it's time to hop in the whip and go for a little ride. Shooting these signs to turn the train tracks without a crosshair was the toughest challenge I've faced in the game so far. It took me forever to get used to it. We finally get on the right track before our aim was tested once again. We did a lot better this time and successfully make it through. Waiting for us at the end was that guy I mentioned earlier who loves a good knife fight, and he's here looking for one right now, so we give it to him. I believe that you can use guns for this fight, but he uses a knife and there's also knives scattered around the place here, so I think the game encouraged you to use an actual knife. So I did, and I powered him like crazy, doing damage when I could. We get the best of him and he decides to run away. But it turns out our boy Kaufman has been stabbed and is not going to make it out of here. He was my boy in this game, he was taking care of me. But that's the end of him, and the chapter for that matter. Chapter 12 starts out with Salazar yapping to us before leaving us to make our way up the clock tower, passing all sort of enemies. This segment is all about using your brains and being resourceful. So we try to group them up and take down as many enemies as we could all at once by using the explosive barrels and the shotgun blowback. The cleric enemies in the red robes gotta be taken out as soon as you can because they are really annoying and they will stun you, making you unable to shoot. We reach the top and make our way across the bridge and recover for a second because we got a big boss fight ahead of us. It's time to put down Salazar once and for all. We use the golden eye because for some reason it does an insane amount of damage, and then we take 3 rifle shots before he moves away. Like I mentioned earlier, I really don't care for this boss fight at all. The arena is terrible, his movements are terrible, the attacks are terrible. It's just not a fun fight. After some messing around, we finally get the killing blow and we are out of here. James jumps in the boat and we are now ready for the island. The cutscene at the start of chapter 13 has Sybil appear once again. I think I can speak for all of us when I say we missed her. She drops James off and we work our way inside past some enemies. As we do so, we come across Maria lying passed out on a bed. Our next goal is to get her back. It wouldn't be an easy feat though, because this chapter would introduce the game's most challenging foes, regenerators. We need to get a keycard that we find upgraded all the way to level 3 to be able to access where Maria is actually at. And to do this we have to get a wrench, and it turns out one of the regenerators has swallowed it. So we have to kill him, grab the wrench, and then use the wrench to open this cage protecting the card machine. Insert the card and wait patiently for the card to rewrite to level 3 as we try not to die as we get ambushed. We grab it and head back over to Maria to reunite for the 47th time, and that's the end of this chapter. Chapter 14 starts with James and Maria doing some puzzles to find their way out of this place until they eventually do. Maria then controls this wrecking ball to break a hole in the wall that will allow us to pass through to the next area. We throw some grenades at the wall, not the enemies, to make this happen a little bit faster. We take the elevator up and finally meet the one running this whole operation face to face, Dahlia Gillespie. You'll never believe what happens next. He kidnaps Maria and then they are separated once again. I never would have saw that coming. As we set off to find her, that dickhead with the knife shows up again and he's created some crash course for James to complete, filled with tripwires, bombs and bear traps. He wants James to complete it, and once we finally do, he decides to let the plagues overtake his body and turning him into a hideous beast, and now we have to fight him. This man right here almost ended my run. I was 11 hours deep, the sun was out, I was running out of ammo and dying over and over and over. I felt defeated. Was the run really about to end at chapter 14 out of 16? Not a chance. It was time to lock in. We hit him with this ladder tech, bro had no idea what to do. I was burning through ammo, and it started to cross my mind. Would my basic level 1 weapons be enough to down this man? Yes, they would. We sneaked around as much as we could, taking some pot shots with the rifle here and there with this slow ass reload time. I was down to 6 bullets in a dream. Things were looking grim. I had already spent an hour on this fight. We needed a Hail Mary, so I decided to toss out one cheeky grenade, and the deed was done. Krauser was dead, and to be honest, I wasn't very far behind him, but nonetheless, chapter 14 was done. Known to some as the hardest chapter in the entire game, chapter 15 was here. I was still riding the high from killing Krauser, and nothing was going to step in my way and stop me from beating this game. We make our way forward and notice the path is blocked. There's no way through. We need to wait for our pal Mike in the helicopter to come and clear this out, so we waste time running around in circles, looping the enemies, and saving our ammo. Mike took his sweet time, but he finally clears the path, allowing us to pass through. We notice a massive machine gun on a rooftop, which stops Mike from being able to pass through. We must get rid of it. We throw a grenade up to explode it, and then Mike is able to join the party. Our next objective is to turn 2 switches on, either side of each other, that are really well guarded, covered in enemies. But we are a man suffering from exhaustion, dehydration. Nothing's going to stop us now. Somehow we breeze through, hitting both switches, allowing us to open the doors and pass through. The next area is a real doozy, but using the techniques of dodgeball legend Patches O'Houlihan, we incorporated the 5 Ds of dodgeball to help us through here. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. And just like that, we are home free. We meet up with Maria for the final time and sit down to remove our infections before we leave the island. Here we are, folks, chapter 16, the final boss fight. Can we do it? It's time to find out. So how this boss fight works is Dahlia has eyes on her knees. Legs? I don't know. Anyway, there are these weak spots that you need to shoot. If you shoot them enough, they'll drop to the floor, allowing you to stab the main eye. We got the stab off once, but the second time we downed her, we couldn't actually reach the eyeballs to do the big finish, so we had to wait a little bit longer. We do enough damage to finally down her. The next scene has to turn into the blob as we take more pot shots, showcasing our supreme dodging skills once again, before Sybil throws us a rocket launcher and we burst her bubble to show her a real holy body. The nightmare is finally over. The only thing left to do is grab Maria and get off this island. So we hop in the whip with her beside us, and we ride off into the sunset together, leaving Silent Hill España behind. This is one of the first proper channel runs I ever did, and I had so much fun doing it, and I can't wait to do some more, focus on some horror games. The results come in at a 10-hour runtime with an A ranking, and the answer to the burning question of can you beat Resident Evil 4 if it's Silent Hill 2 is yes, you can. This video was a bit different than the usual video essay stuff I do, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless, and if you did, consider throwing a like, it would help me out greatly. As I mentioned before, this was taken from a Twitch stream where I stream 3 days a week over on Twitch, so if you like horror games, being silly, all that good stuff, come and hang out with us over there, you're more than welcome to. Link in the description. Otherwise, have a great day, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.